Secretary-General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, says an integrated market on the African continent will be beneficial to Africa's 1.2 billion population. Governments are placing their hopes on this agreement, potential strength as a trading bloc to change the continent's trajectory. Giving an update on the status, Mene said through the implementation of this agreement, Africa can double its intra-continental trade by 2025 and see 100 million Africans lifted out of poverty by 2035. Benefits will not only be enjoyed by big businesses, but small and medium enterprises, women in trade, and young Africans in trade businesses. And they say that this will grow meaningfully. The Secretary-General, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, joins us live from Ethiopia. His Excellency, what a pleasure to have you. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, you've been visiting countries on the continent, and out of Africa, pre- and post-implementation date, what has happened so far since the implementation of the Free Trade Area Agreement?
Well, so far we continue to push for more countries to implement the agreement. There are a few more countries that require the requisite technical capacity from a customs point of view. In other words, there are countries that are still putting in place the customs procedures that are required to give commercial effect to the agreement. Thus far, it is South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Egypt, who have those customs procedures in place. I should point out that implementing a trade agreement is very, very difficult. You have to have the right customs procedures. The capacity to do so has to be there. And so it takes time. And so I'm not surprised that we have a handful of countries who have in place the procedures that are required. I know that as the year goes by, more and more countries will be able to give commercial effect to this agreement.
Yeah. I mean, there's visibility in countries, as you mentioned, like Kenya, Ghana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, validating the agreement in their commitments, including conversations and seminars. But what will it actually look like, this agreement, once it is fully operational?
Once it is fully operational, our objective is that 15 years from now, trade on the African continent on 97% of products will be at zero duty, and 97% products across will be able to transit across the African continent without the current barriers, regulatory barriers, without the current tariff barriers that we experience today. And we believe that this will significantly boost intra-Africa trade. Second, 15 years from now, we expect that with the reduction and elimination of barriers in the area of trade in services, in financial services, in telecommunication services, that too will further boost growth and economic activity on the African continent, leading to lifting millions and millions of people out of poverty, as you noted in your opening remarks.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes time, so it's going to take about 15 years before we actually see the results and before we conclude the tariff reduction formula that we have agreed to.
I mean, it certainly has been hailed as one of the best moves by the African Union, but as you say, it does take time. And unfortunately, you know, there have been initiatives that have not necessarily yielded the results that we hoped for. I mean, there is huge economic potential for the continent's 1.2 billion population. And this has been ratified by 36 signatories, which is already a great achievement. How are you working on the buy-in of the 19 countries that are yet to ratify the agreement? You spoke of mechanics that you've introduced as benefits. So perhaps give us an update on where these countries stand right now.
The ratification process is a domestic process, it's a political process, it's a legal process. In each country that has not yet ratified. So we have to respect the constitutional requirements of each country from a ratification point of view. There are some countries who have expressed to me that at the highest level, at the level of heads of states, who have expressed to me that they are ready, that they will ratify in the next few months. So I expect that by the middle of the year, there will be over 40 countries who have ratified this agreement. And I would note also that there are some countries who also have concerns, apart from the legal process takes time. There are countries who have legitimate concerns, which is why they have not yet ratified. For example, there are countries who are worried about transshipment of goods from third parties. There are countries who are worried about, as I mentioned earlier, their capacity, their readiness from a customs procedure point of view. And we have to work with these countries to address these concerns. We have implemented measures, customs measures at the level of the Secretariat itself, which we hope will address some of the concerns that countries have. Yeah. But certainly the issue of rules of origin, transshipment of goods, these are very, very important and legitimate concerns which we're working to address, which is why having having customs authorities that have the capacity to enforce the rules of origin, to prevent transshipment of goods, is absolutely critical. Because if we do not have a customs enforcement capacity that will prevent transshipment of goods, there will be job losses on the continent. And we do not want this agreement to create job losses. We want this agreement to create jobs. And so we have to work very closely with our customs authorities to address the concerns of countries who have not yet ratified. And I am working closely with President Issoufou, the champion of the AfCFTA and outgoing president of Niger, to work with those countries who have not yet ratified, who intend to ratify, but we need to address their concerns going.
I mean, we need to start wrapping up the conversation, but I mean, there are many issues, and it's a big challenge ahead. You've spoken to some of them, whether we talk about the political instability and also the political will, also talking to corruption, also talking to, many issues which we have discussed with a previous guest of ours. But while I have you here, just to round things up a little bit for us, I mean, Africa's infrastructure is a massive challenge, and it certainly is a barrier working against intertrade and integrating markets and developments. We see that the AU is reportedly setting up a fund for the construction of roads, for railways, energy plants throughout Africa, with I think it's about $60 to $90 billion annual infrastructure financing deficit. I mean, these are questions to ask where this money is going to come from, and also just to add to that, the interconnectivity that could be leveraged on the internet and digital platforms. But digitalization and technological penetration is still a huge factor on the continent. Perhaps you can round those issues up, particularly on infrastructure when it comes to transport and digitalization.
Well, on the infrastructure side, as you mentioned, Africa has an infrastructure deficit of over $100 billion, which is also an opportunity for investors. And we have to work with development finance institutions on the African continent, with private equity, with institutional investors. Now that we have a legal framework, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, it provides the basis for investors and the legal comfort for investors to enhance investment in infrastructure on the African continent. And so we have our work cut out as the African Union, as the African Development Bank, the Development Bank of Southern Africa, to make sure that the complementarity between trade and infrastructure certainly is more pronounced, and that we leverage on this complementarity between trade and infrastructure. Because without infrastructure, we will not be able to double intra-Africa trade by the year 2035. But I should say that I'm very encouraged by what I've seen. I was in Egypt last month. The interconnectivity that Egypt has produced from ports, road corridors with the rest of the African continent, with West Africa, with East Africa. I was in Togo last week, and Togo has a world-class port, deep water port that connects inland countries that are landlocked rather, such as Niger, Burkina Faso, that connects them to the coast of West Africa. So it is happening, far slowly than we would want, of course, but I think there are positive stories to be told. Mm-hmm. Regarding connectivity through digital platforms, we know that today there are women who are in Kenya who are farmers of flour, who use digital platforms to access markets in Europe, something that has never been seen before, which of course has been placed at the fore. These digital platforms have been placed to the fore by the onset of COVID-19, and they need to continue to remain engaged with global supply chains. And so digital platforms are absolutely critical to make sure that we enhance trade on the African continent. We make trade on the African continent more affordable, more accessible, and certainly more efficient. And we have introduced a number of platforms, digital platforms, that will connect small, medium enterprises across the African continent, that will provide on the platform critical information such as due diligence, market profile of the market, the particular market that a small, medium enterprise may want to expand to, a new market. Of course, we are also working to make sure that we provide the requisite trade finance facility, which would be connected to that particular digital platform. And so these platforms, they offer an opportunity for us to truly revolutionize trade on the African continent. And I think that it is important that we work with the private sector, that we work with the development finance institutions to make sure that as we roll out these platforms, that there is the finance capacity is there. And so we are mobilizing with commercial banks and development finance institutions. We are mobilizing a trade finance facility to support these digital platforms and new market access for small, medium enterprises.
All right, His Excellency, thank you very, very much for joining us here on the program. Obviously, as we say, it all sounds good, it all sounds optimistic, but let's hope that it spreads to the small businesses and not just those few that perhaps have access to you and the rest of your colleagues. So let's keep a very close eye on this and check out the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and all that goes with it. So great to have the chairperson here on the program with us this morning, just giving us an update. Not the chairperson, the Secretary-General, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. He was joining us from Ethiopia. All right, let's quickly take a break. We'll have more for you after this.